welcome back to Porsche Club Insider, episode number 5. I'm with the crew here at Podcast Studio at 5 North Main. Want to shout out again, thank you to Coffee Bar Bel Air for the wonderful holiday drinks that we're enjoying today. The crew here today is the normal crew we have. Myself, your host, Vu Nguyen, PCA's technical director, Manny, Porsche Panorama editor, Rob Sass, and PCA's digital media coordinator, Damon Lowney. But we have an extra special guest today who's dressed very well for the moment.
He's security.
He's security?
No, he's my therapy dog, actually.
He's a wonderful looking, very well behaved. Ethan's a greyhound?
Yeah, Ethan is a retired racing greyhound, and you hadn't gotten into the office yet this morning, but we watched his last race, which fully explains why he's here in this festive sweater and not still a dog track.
It was very much like my
Virginia.
club racing career.
But I'm assuming he has, parents that were champions of sorts, and it may
Right,
have
well, greatness skipped a generation.
Skipped a generation.
You remember that episode of Simpsons, Santa's Little Helper, where the greyhound gets kicked out because it lost?
Yeah.
Right. They're supposed to bet. Barney's like, put it all on Whirlwind. And they wind up betting on Santa's Little Helper because it's Christmas time. And, of course, the dog loses, and you know the rest.
He was so slow. I'm sorry, Ethan. Cover your ears.
I love how you're slamming a dog.
That he disappeared out of the shot of the screen. They
He
had
was not
like
even in the
7
frame.
dogs, and you can't see Ethan anymore.
It was one race, guys. One race. But I guess it's pretty important when you're ready to
thought
do
he was
that.
a
Pretty
smart dog.
representative of the other 2 races, actually.
He figured out quickly that if you do something so bad, they'll never ask you to do it again, and thus he belongs to Rob now.
Yes.
Smart dog. Very
Smart
smart
dog.
dog. And living a wonderful life. I love the flannel cover. I mean, it's the life that he has now is probably much better than what he had.
I'm sure it is. So, if anybody's looking to adopt a dog at Christmas time, I highly recommend greyhounds.
Greyhounds. And you had a greyhound before.
I did. He's actually greyhound number 5.
Oh, number 5.
Yeah, I'm a serial greyhound adopter.
Oh. So speaking of number 5, this is our 5th episode. I want to thank the Executive Council.
Well, that was a nice transition.
This is not my first rodeo. This is our 5th episode, but today we can actually celebrate that the pilots of the Porsche Club Insider is actually going to go live next week. Thanks to the folks on the Executive Council allowing us to do so, but also thank you to Damon, who's also here. And we've uploaded 4 of the episodes already.
We've uploaded 3. We'll be doing 4 sometime this week. And December 20th is when they'll be going live.
And what platforms will they be on?
They'll be on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and Spotify. And we can also find them on YouTube, or you can listen to the MP3 on our website for the podcast.
Okay, and we'll be able to track. This is going to be very important because this is a pilot, so to speak. We're going to run this through April, so we're going to need to know the metrics. So we'll be able to, no matter what platform people are going to be listening to, we'll be able to measure that.
Yes, but YouTube and some of the podcast apps such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon are the ones we'd like you to listen to. I'm not quite sure if we can track how many times people have clicked the MP3 player on our website.
Okay, we'll have to talk to Robert, make
Yeah,
sure
I think he's going to.
So we've only uploaded 3 of the 4 at this point.
Yeah, still looking for the 4th one right now.
The 4th
We'll need
one
to
we're
get that
accidentally
link.
cursed.
Yes, exactly.
That's the one that we didn't upload.
Yeah, I thought this was the 4th episode, but
No, this is the 5th.
shows
The
where I
4th
am.
one,
We lost an episode?
no, we haven't.
No, we didn't lose it.
So hopefully you all take a listen. Hopefully you enjoy it. Please give us some feedback. This will be a continually evolving conversation, hopefully for years to come. So we're happy that it's sort of taking off today.
Yeah, very exciting. Can't wait till we get some feedback.
So the last time we were together, I think it was just after Thanksgiving or after we got back from SoCal with all the different events, Unstock and such. And I haven't traveled much. I had a overseas trip that was planned, but unfortunately with all the COVID spikes overseas, we decided to cancel that. Many honeydews have been taken care of for the past couple of days here. But a few of you did some trips. Manny, you went back to SoCal.
Yeah, since you guys were all going to Germany and leaving me here, Rob threw me a scrap and said, why don't you go on this media trip for the Taycan GTS?
Uh-huh.
That was a pretty nice scrap, man.
Yes, I could get used to that.
So more importantly is we had talked about in the 4th episode, I believe, how I got to drive Angeles Crest, but unfortunately it was in a Chevy Colorado.
Yes.
You got to do that drive in this Sport Turismo.
Oh, yeah,
With
Manny
the
finally lost
caveat
his.
that it was raining and cold
Doesn't matter.
and foggy.
Doesn't matter. You had a sports car.
It sort of does, I found out.
It does.
Yeah.
So who was there, and what was the purpose of that trip? A typical press trip?
So the typical press trip, like this one here, I'm not talking as an experienced person. Rob does this all the time, but they did it in 3 waves, and they invite journalists. Some are print. I guess the majority are video, probably, right, Rob?
Yeah.
And it was 7 cars. They had 7 Taycan GTSs, Sport Turismos, and they had some of the sedans. And they were all German spec cars because they wanted them here as quick as possible so people could drive them. They weren't the U.S. cars.
Tell people what that means. That means the infotainment doesn't work properly.
Yeah,
The
navigation
nav
doesn't work.
Yeah.
Some of the features don't work. But more importantly, the manual, owner's manual, is all in German. That comes on later in the story.
Was there a translator in the right seat?
No.
Oh, they just send you out by yourself in the car?
I mean, they do the quick 2-minute, touch this, and this to get this, and this. And
And you're not paired up with any other journalists or anything
you're
like that?
by yourself, and you're told we're going to meet at such and such place for lunch. Just be there by then. And they give you a map you can download. Being CarPlay, it's really easy. I just went right to CarPlay, hit in Angeles Crest or Newcomb's Ranch,
Yeah.
and off I went. It was
And once you're on that road, you're just heading in one direction, and eventually you catch up to
from where
everybody.
we were at in the hotel. It took about an hour.
Oh, wow.
To get there through traffic, but that was fine for me because I got to experience the car in traffic, and it was the first time for me driving an electric car. I have not managed to be able to drive one. I've ridden shotgun in Teslas, but never in the Taycan. And they were kind of shocked at that. They couldn't believe it. I said, I've driven 918s, Carrera GTs, 959s, but never a Taycan.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really excited because I'm very excited about the electric revolution. And so a couple first impressions I had was obviously when you turn it on, it's like turning on your laptop. Everything lights up, but there's no sound.
Right.
It's obviously very quiet. It's just the batteries running, and so you're immediately looking for like the RPM counter, and there's nothing there. It's just silence, and it was raining, so you just hear the wipers. But once you get on the road, you start to hear the tire noise, the wind noise. So it's not total silence. Mm-hmm. So what I was finding was I wasn't really missing any kind of exhaust sound. They do have this sound generator on this car, which they had on the turbo also. And basically, it amplifies the sound of the motor. Mm-hmm. So you're not listening to a fake pre-recorded exhaust sound. You're just hearing the motor, which is usually insulated, and you may not hear it. Now you can hear it. But honestly, it wasn't something that I said, oh, this changes everything. This makes it better.
It's not like it's not a performance indicator.
No, I didn't. I didn't miss it. What do you think, Rob? You've driven Taycans?
Yeah, no, at the same time, or right before you were driving the GTS, I had the other end of the Taycan spectrum. I had a rear-wheel drive base car, and I thought it was wonderful. That's 400 and something horsepower, pretty much all you need. I liked it a lot. I've from the first time that I drove a Taycan, which I think was, I don't know, probably about 2 years ago. I was a believer. They're great fun to drive.
Yeah, I too have been able to drive a Taycan. Mine was a Taycan Turbo. It was sort of the King Kong of all the Taycans. And you sort of have to reset your mind a little bit when you get into these cars because right from the get-go, because I don't drive one every day, like just putting it into drive is, I don't want to say it's confusing, but you're just like, okay, am I really in drive? Am I really in park? Like I still wasn't used to all of that.
So that happened to me when I pulled over to take photos at on one of the pull-offs on Angeles Crest. You're used to hearing the engine
Exactly.
running. So I I stopped for a second. I got my iPhone ready, and I open the door to get out. As soon as I get out, the car starts rolling forward.
There's
way.
that big button that says P on it.
Well, it's to the right. That it's kind of
to the
covered.
right
You
of
can't
like
see
the
it.
Braun electric
So I'm
shaver
like, whoa,
shifter.
whoa. And I immediately look for the big P to put it in park. But yeah, it's very easy to because you don't hear an engine sound.
Right.
Forget that it's not running anymore.
Or
It's,
you don't get like that little, for those in like typical automatics and stuff, like once you park and you let go of the brake, it like kind of locks in place.
Yeah.
Like you don't have any of that, right?
No,
So
so that only took one time for me to happen, and I remembered every time to put it in park.
so the GTS was 590 horsepower, so that's quite a
So
rocket.
so the way they have the motor configuration is it's 670 for the turbo, 590 for the GTS, but the torque is the same on both cars.
Oh wow.
And quite frankly, it's more than enough
Oh
horsepower.
yeah, I would think
It's,
the base model is more than enough for most of us.
It's I mean, just driving on the LA freeways, just one stab of the throttle, and you're where you want to be very quickly. So,
What did you like most about it?
that it was honestly that it was a Porsche. It was no compromise. I felt like I was driving a Panamera as far as the response, the handling. It wasn't anything sacrificing.
Yeah.
I think the dimensions, Rob and I were talking about the Sport Turismo body, and it was almost like the Sport Turismo was actually perfect for the Taycan's dimensions.
No.
I love the Panamera, but this was just right. This is the perfect size for it, and it was. It wasn't anything that I was giving up. I didn't say, boy, I'm really going to miss gas engines. It wasn't.
So in the first drive review that we posted on PCA.org, and thanks for writing that, you said that it does an upshift, but it also does rev match downshift.
Yes,
and it was hard for me to believe because I'm like, how does an electric motor do that? I published it, thinking, Manny knows what he's talking about. He just drove it. And then I watched a video, Steve Sutcliffe on Auto Express on YouTube, and it downshifts and it rev matches. It sounds really good. Tell us about.
So I thought that was a pre-recorded sound from the Panamera gas engine.
Yeah.
So when Calvin Kim and I were riding back in his Taycan, I asked him that. I said, is this a pre-recorded sound from a gas engine that I'm hearing? And he said, no, you're hearing the actual motor. It's just amplified. I said, but it downshifted. It like heel and toed.
Because it's a 2-speed.
And for back in the first gear, he goes, yeah. He goes, it's all the motor you're hearing. You're not hearing, or electrical motor. You're not hearing any fake sound. So that was, it was very subtle. I did ask him if you could increase the volume of the amplification, because being by myself in a car, I would have liked to have it a little bit louder.
Right.
But he said, no, it is what it is, basically, at least right now.
Yeah.
So it was just in the background. It wasn't.
I keep thinking back to my experience in the Taycan, and all I can remember is like it was quite serene, right? Like you had massive speed, but it was comfortable and it was fun to drive. People could say, "Oh, do you love electric versus gas?" And I'm like, it's in my mind, it's not a versus. It's more about, will Porsche produce an electric car that still has all the characteristics that we love about Porsche, as you said earlier. And more recently, I drove a Tesla Model Y. My uncle got one of those, and it's fast, but it wasn't fun to drive. Like the whole one pedal thing, and tossing it around corners. Like it's just it doesn't have that fun factor that the Taycan had. I know it's two completely different price points, but I guess that's the whole thing with Porsche. And there's other cars out there that are fast, right? Even in the internal combustion engine side, but they're not the same fun factor when it comes to performance.
But I mean, any Tesla, even a Model S is that way. I've driven a few of those, and they always strike me as a car that sort of, handles like a Lexus, built like a Buick, a Buick of 15 years ago, actually. So, I had a hard time getting terribly excited. I know there are obviously Tesla brand junkies out there, and that's great. But I think the Taycan is certainly in build quality, driving dynamics is in a completely different league from any Tesla.
Locally here in the Chesapeake region, there is a local autocrosser with a Model 3 Performance who looks like he's having a lot of fun out there and beating almost everybody.
And he knows how to autocross,
and
too.
he knows how to autocross. And yes, he does. And Mr. Cruz, I believe. And we'll just leave it at that. And he's got sticky tires on his car. But, firsthand, we're not, people expect that Porsche people might slam Teslas or whatever for.
I just sort of, didn't I?
You sort of did.
Yeah.
But there's truth to it. And again, I wouldn't slam unless I had real world examples. And then go back to my uncle's Model Y. He took delivery with nobody. He just went and picked up this car. And I think you have like 3 days or so to kind of look over the car and figure out what's wrong with it. So he's like, yeah, take a look for me, see if you find anything. And I'm not kidding you. I opened the driver's door and I looked at the B pillar, and the panel for the B pillar literally was off its connectors or hinges or whatever. And I'm like, Uncle, is this supposed to be the way? He's like, I don't know. So I looked at the other side, and of course the other side's nicely fitted. So for a car to be able to be delivered to a customer, that's not completely built, that's pretty crazy. I mean, again, I'm not trying to slam Tesla, but they've done amazing things, but panel fit, all that kind of stuff. Like, for the amount of money that he has spent on that car, you would think that should not be one of the things that is wrong with it.
Those aren't necessarily isolated things. I mean, those sort of assembly gaffes are things that you hear about, from time to time with them, and they're a brand new company. They obviously had some very aggressive production numbers to hit, and those sorts of things happen. But they don't happen at Porsche.
Yeah, they need to hire engineers from Toyota. Remember, Porsche
kind of like what Porsche did
for Porsche.
And production qualities.
Help them with the production quality.
But I'll give them credit where credit's due. Like in terms of like their software and like connectivity. Again, my uncle, he loves being able to track the car, and charging opportunities and all that kind of stuff is pretty cool there.
But two things I wasn't that impressed was this race tech. I'm not loving it.
Hello. Did we not talk about this?
Is that because you don't like Alcantara, or is race tech?
I prefer leather.
There you go.
But it just, you know what it feels like? It feels like that blanket that they put on top of the sheets at a really cheap hotel.
Like the
anti-stain,
Red Roof Inn,
something like that. Yeah, it's just. And what I wasn't impressed either with was so I picked that Taycan because I wanted to play with it. Was the roof? I forgot what it's called now, but it's the
darkening roof.
Yeah, darkening roof that has the 9 panels.
Is it impressive as they say it is?
I did not think so, and I tried to record a video of it darkening, but it just didn't come out well. Yeah. It's basically like 3 panels, and it's like an electronic version of pulling.
Right, and when you
cover
apply
back.
Power to it, it darkens.
So maybe because it was overcast, and I didn't really appreciate how much light it could keep out. But that, so the reason I had time to play with all this transitions to my adventures. So, like Rob said, this is the first time where I got to drive Angeles Crest instead of riding passenger. And
well, tell everybody what happened. You losing your Angeles Crest virginity. You let Crestus interrupt us.
It's raining. It's 44 degrees. We're on summer tires in these German spec cars.
And snow plows are out, but not for the reason why you think snow plows are out.
Yes, I see snow plows, so I'm thinking to myself, I guess it may be snowing at the top. And I'm watching as, where I'm climbing elevation, temperature's going down, so I'm being cognizant, and it's wet, and I'm not really pushing the car. I'm trying to get a little bit sideways in corners, but the car's too smart. It's correcting itself. And I never saw it, but I must have hit a rock. And evidently these rocks are very jagged. And as soon as I hit it, I hear this ping sound, which I didn't know what that was at the time. But then I see in my dashboard it says, low tire
air
pressure,
warning.
check tire pressure. And first of all, you first go in denial that, well, maybe it's a bad sensor. And then I'm watching as the air pressure starting to drop. So suddenly I feel like a pilot losing altitude, and I got to find a place to land. So then there's no shoulder.
Yeah.
So I'm running up ahead trying to find a runoff area that I could pull off. So I finally find a place I can pull off. And as I sit there, I just watch the thing go down. But it doesn't go down to 0. It actually shows -30.
Oh.
So that's how much pressure you got to add.
How much you need to add. Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
So I say, let me just check, because I know this car doesn't have a spare tire.
Probably had like 1 or 2 pounds left in that tire or something.
And the thing about Angela's
But
car,
at least it was a fluke, Manny. I mean, what are the odds of anybody getting a flat from a sharp
especially with
rock?
not going off road,
Right?
Not intentionally.
It's
hitting
not
a rock.
like it's going to happen again or to anybody else.
So I sit there for 45 minutes. It gives me plenty of time to play with the electronics. And there's no one on the highway because it's rainy and
nor
foggy.
is there cell signal.
No cell signal, nothing.
Angela's car. So now you're a sitting duck.
So I'm thinking to myself, and I had passed Calvin, and he was the sweeper. So I saw him parked, and I said, I guess he's waiting for everybody to pass by. So he should be coming up soon. Mm-hmm. So I'm waiting, playing solitaire on my phone, checking every 15 minutes to see maybe I have a signal now. And all of a sudden, in the other direction, these 2 Taycans pull in. And one of them's Patrick Long. And the other one's Mike DePietro, who's
Mike.
to the 4 doors.
Yep.
And they thought I was taking pictures. And I get out of my car, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad you guys stopped. I said, I have a flat tire. They're like, you have a flat tire, too?
2?
Yeah, they were like, someone else has a flat tire, and Calvin Kim is down there with a flat tire. I'm like, oh, crap. I said, I saw him
So
park.
3 cars with flat tires already.
So,
Well,
yeah,
this is
so,
2 at this point, right?
Yeah.
So,
This is 2 at this point, 2 Taycan GTSs.
Yeah, so they come out and they're like, you know where the hole's at? I'm like, no. I said, it went down really quick, though. And so here comes Mike with the fix-a-flat.
Because there's no spare tire.
No spare tire.
Yeah.
Well, since they're German spec cars, everything's in German. And so we're trying to read the instructions, and you can imagine how the Germans overthink this. And it is like impossible to look at the pictures and figure out exactly how you're supposed to use this. So Mike goes, I've done this before. I think you just got to put it in, take the valve stem out, you stick it in, and you squeeze the bottle. And we got it all in, and we're pretty happy. We're like, yeah, we just got to wait for it to seal. So we wait a few minutes, we plug it in. Patrick gets into the driver's seat. I guess I have to mention that Patrick Long is a recently retired factory driver. That we've known Patrick forever. He's a PCA member, and it's not moving at all.
Really?
The pressure's staying the same. It hasn't.
It's going out as fast as it's going in.
Basically. And so Patrick's like, well, let's roll the car around. And I think if we roll it around, we can get the sealant stuff onto the hole. We roll it around, and I'm going to write an article about this. It has photos, and it shoots out a lot of white.
Oh,
white
it all
gunk.
comes out. Yeah.
Mike said that it was happy to see us. And so now we're looking at
So much for our G rating.
and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, this is California. I bet you they are pissed that we're dumping this into the environment, whatever this stuff is. And so Patrick's like, screw this. I've done this many a times in the racetrack. I've nursed home flats. He goes, I'll just drive it to the bottom of the hill, which was about 8 miles back down.
On a flat tire.
Yeah, on the flat tire.
Drove basically all the way to La Cañada to the end of it.
Yes,
on a
that's
flat.
what his plan was.
That's impressive.
Wow.
And said he knew there was roadside assistance because Calvin said, well, I had ordered brought in 4 extra front tires. So they thought this may happen.
Yeah.
So Patrick hands me the keys to his Taycan GTS sedan. He says, I'm going to start driving yours down. I'll drive slow. So then I get in his, and Calvin says, I'll follow you. And I drive about almost a mile down, and I see a pull out. So I pull out, and I tell Calvin, I said, hey, I'm just going to take some photos of this car while I have it. Mm-hmm. So I take a few pictures. I get back in, and I swear, no more than 1 minute after we get back in,
Ping.
ping.
Bing.
Oh, my.
And I'm like,
Wow.
you have got to be freaking kidding me. And, of course, the light lights up immediately on the dash, that low tire pressure, and I still go into denial, and I'm looking to see how quickly I'm losing air, and I'm thinking 6 miles.
Whoa.
I think I can make it downhill, and then finally I'm like, oh, I
you don't want to
gotta
trash
land
around.
this bird too. So I pull over and get out of the car, go to Calvin. He goes, "What's up?" And I'm like,
Flat tire.
"You won't believe this! Another flat tire."
So in the span of how many miles? 3 flat tires.
Yeah, it was. So on the way down, he left one of the ladies who was helping him out from Porsche. She was going to wait for the support vehicle, which was working on the other Taycan, to come back down and change tires on this one. So Calvin and I went down in his. So he was driving, and he was telling me that these snow plows aren't for snow. They use them when it snows, but today they're just meant to plow the rocks out of the way. Which, being an East Coaster, that was like, wow.
Yeah,
So what happens here is that, so this is Southern California. It doesn't rain very often. When it does rain, all these canyons, with these rock faces start falling apart, and just all these rocks just cover the road.
Yeah, basically. He was Frank Weisman, who PR guy. He for Porsche, he had gone way up ahead to scout it out. He was showing me photos that the entire road was covered in rocks.
Really?
Wow.
Which on the way up, I kept on thinking, I wonder how much this replacement roof cost. On this.
It's 9 layers of crystal film segments.
And I asked somebody from Porsche, and he's like, I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah. No. Again, I mentioned that earlier, didn't I? Wow.
So we got back down. So it was an adventure. You don't want to be with 21-inch summer tires with no cell phone signal.
So perhaps the selection of the Chevy Colorado that we had earlier wasn't such a bad choice after all.
No, that still sucked. Of all the cars we could have taken to Angeles Crest, that was probably the worst one.
So let me switch and kind of wrap up talking about electric cars, because I saw some spy shots of the e-Macan yesterday, and I learned a little bit. Maybe Damon, you always read up on this stuff, but PPE. Do you know what PPE is?
I do not off the top of my head.
Premium Platform Electric.
Oh, yep.
Right? So to me, it's like the skateboard chassis for mini production vehicles that are going to be electric for VW and Porsche, which the e-Macan will be based on. 800 volts. It can start out as a rear-wheel drive, e-car, all-wheel drive, turbo mode, or whatever you want to call it. 300 plus mile range. That's going to be a pretty hot seller in my mind. It's good. It's a good looking vehicle too. The spy shots, at least.
Yep. No. It'll be the first electric mass production SUV that Porsche does, is the Macan EV on the PPE platform. Porsche does this a lot with their platforms and the VW group in general. So with the Taycan, for example, that's the JL1 platform, I believe, and the Audi e-tron recent released is basically a Taycan with Audi badges. So the Macan EV is probably going to be the same sort of thing with other VW products.
But they'll tune it, obviously.
They'll tune it. It'll be better, to drive with Porsche, I'm sure, than a lot of the other brands within VW Group.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I think that's going to be an instant hit as soon as it comes out, because we've all known it's coming. I think people are excited about it, because I know I get asked, when is it going to come out? Because I don't want to buy a gas one if I know the electric one is coming to follow.
Well, the Macan right now is a great SUV, one of the best handling SUVs you can buy, if not the best handling one. But then you take an electric battery, stick it way down low in the chassis. It's not going to roll very much. It'll be quicker off the line and probably have just as high of a top speed. So I really don't see how they can get this wrong when it comes from a handling perspective.
You just blew it. You just blew it, Damon.
Yeah. Well, they could get it wrong. Porsche doesn't get things wrong too often, but from a driving perspective, I think it's going to be a great SUV.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, because I think also the price range of that car is going to be within reach for many of our listeners, as opposed to a Taycan, right? Taycan's a kind of higher upper echelon kind of a vehicle. So to have a stunning performance and an SUV battery, that's going to be a hit.
Yeah, it's obviously the revolution's happening. It'll be I think everyone's waiting now for the two-door sports car to come out.
Yeah,
to see it, be it the Cayman or the Boxster.
It's all but confirmed.
Yeah, it's coming. It's to me, it's going to be exciting. You know what surprised me driving the Taycan was I didn't get the feeling of the extra weight. I was really between that and the Panamera equivalent.
Okay, maybe driving on the street.
Well, you're not comparing it to a Boxster.
Yeah, I mean, when I was fortunate enough to drive the Taycan, I was driving it on track. You definitely feel there's a lot of weight being slung around. On the street, probably not.
But what they should do then is put you in a Panamera and a Taycan, so you can see that it's not
that far
day
off.
And night difference.
Yeah.
Comparison test, maybe.
Yeah.
Comparison test, yeah.
Well, somebody asked me, because they knew I drove the Panamera GTS, what I thought of the two.
Yeah.
And, they're very similar feel-wise. I love don't get me wrong, the V8 you can't beat, that nice burble, the idle, it's just incredible.
Yeah, one of the other things I'm looking forward to with an electric Porsche is let's be honest, there's a lot of things about a ICE engine that can go wrong just because there's many more parts to it, from plastic hoses and rubber hoses and sensors. And I'm not saying that the new one will be completely trouble-free, but there's just less parts, right? And less heat and less cycles and all that kind of stuff that, hopefully the electric line of Porsches will be even more reliable, and maintenance will be even less.
Well, they still do have radiators and water pumps, I believe. So we might still be blowing a coolant hose every once in a while.
I don't think it's at that level of
heat,
pressure and level of heat of an internal combustion engine, right? And so many, yes, I'm sure it has a huge wire harness too, because everything is electric in that car. But compared to an ICE engine, that's way more complex. Like, this is gonna be kind of cool to have a Porsche super reliable. Okay, we do have to give up the sound.
I will give up the sound if that means that I don't have to do oil changes. I don't have to worry about vacuum lines getting loose. I don't have to worry about coolant lines. All these things that I'm telling you, in 20 years, the next generation is going to look at internal combustion engines and say, you actually trusted these things to get you somewhere?
You put a flammable liquid from the gas station into the tank of your car, you rode around with it?
My little BMW with almost 220,000 miles has some kind of oil leak. So every morning I get that nice whiff of burnt oil that I just learned to live with because I don't want to go searching.
That's all called charisma for your car.
Yeah, that's what you
lose a little charisma
when you're
with
dating your wife.
cars.
You tell her that, but after you get married, you're like, "It's an oil leak I don't want to fix."
Well, Rob, I think, took Ethan out for a little tour, so we'll catch up with him in a bit on his press trip and kind of move into recent videos. Since we were last together, I think we released the Unstock video, the 993 Buyer's Guide, and then we did a recut of the 2021 values video.
Yes, we did. So we did a recut of the values video because it was very well received, and but it's about an hour long
because it's Tech Tactics Live.
Yeah, it's a Tech Tactics Live show, but we do an hour-long show, and with some people we work with and consult with for our YouTube channel, they recommended that we maybe try something out to take all of the points of that live video where we saw a viewership spike and put it into a shorter 10 to 12 minute video, I think it is, for people who don't want to watch for the full hour but want to get to the meat of what was being talked about.
So I like how he's nicely saying, for those that didn't want to hear you and Nathan banter, we just took the important stuff and made a new video out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I am offended. No, I'm just kidding. No,
we got 30,000 views for that, which is pretty good for Tech Tactics Live. I think it's our second best Tech Tactics Live video. So,
and you
guys liked it.
How well is this recut doing? We're at
it's about 2,000 views right now, over 2,000. Let's see what it is exactly here.
So I'd be interested to hear from you all if you think the long version, which is live, which yes, it's not perfect. Do you like that, or do you like the recut version where it's distilled?
Yep. Well, we have one person here, a user named Overbuilt Limited, saying, "Good job on this edit, PCA, cutting out the chatter." So maybe you were right, Boo.
One guy out of 20-some thousand.
Very true.
Of the other, right?
So I just saw last night that we put out, and I wondered to myself, why can't we do this at the actual event?
What's that?
We did the awards video.
Yeah. Oh, he did. Damon did. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, why can't we do that at Parade? Just have it all over with in, what was that, 15 minutes?
It was less than 15. I think it was about 10 to 12 minutes or so.
We're not going to go there because we might hurt some people's feelings. So let's just say thank you, Damon, for putting together the awards video. You did a great job. And for those of you that are in region leadership position, if you haven't submitted your region for some of these awards, please do so.
Yep, awards at PCA.org.
Yep. Well, I guess you also want to address the fact that our last Tech Tactics Live, which was going swimmingly well, so much so that I actually told Robert, I know I cursed myself when I said, this is going so well, I think I'm going to light up a cigar.
It was you. And,
everything was going fine. So when we do these remote Tech Tactic Live episodes, or where the guest is going to be remote, we do multiple tests of audio, lighting,
We
and
do a
connectivity.
script. We do a script.
Everything's, although sometimes it may not look like it, everything is reviewed ahead of time. And the only thing we forgot was to tell our host to properly charge up his ear pods.
Now, here's the thing. Nathan, even when we went live, he was, he said he is not a technical, AV guy. And the people that were with him.
Yeah, sliding those things into the little container to charge, that's pretty techie.
So in the past, when we've been remote, I'm usually at the other end. So there's somewhat of a control. Now, even at the LA Auto Show, we had issues because although we tested the capacity of the Wi-Fi the night before, which was, plenty, 5 minutes before we start, we get dial-up speeds. So things like that happen. Again, we do our best to make sure that we plan, for any kind of emergencies. But, with the 993 video, keep in mind for the first, 3/4 of the video, it was actually fine.
Yeah, it wasn't
but we just got slammed for the last 10 minutes. And, yes, okay, so Nathan's ear pods, went out because he didn't have them fully charged. The people that he was with were trying to be helpful, and they were retracting the extension cord, which you could hear more than you could hear Nathan. He had his buddy hold the camera, and he was so involved in the discussion, like Manny, when I gave Manny the camera in the past, you could see the phone just sort of drop.
One time, and I
see the camera drop in
10 years ago,
and you see half of Nathan's face. All right, so folks, we tried our best. We'll definitely, with that particular video, there's so much to cover when you're considering a 993. We knew we weren't going to capture everything in a 1 hour show, but that was supposed to be a teaser, sort of a preview, and we're working with Nathan to maybe do a more in-depth video like we did with the 3.2s.
Yeah, but if anything, if you're interested in 993, it is a great video. In fact, I even learned, as much as I know about 993s, Nathan had the actual cutout.
Oh, yeah.
Of what happens when a doorstop goes bad.
Yeah.
He had it cut out from another car, and that was fascinating to me. I had never seen up close what it looks like inside the door, because you just can't see it unless you physically cut the door out.
Yeah.
And the hinge and everything. So,
how well did that video do, despite having quality issues?
We're over 8,000 views, so 8,400 just about right now.
Not bad.
If
so
you read
again,
the comments, you would have thought, well, if they wanted your head.
I'm supposed to resign
and apologize to the entire North American audience.
We're not perfect, people. We're not perfect. We will try, but we're not perfect. Mr. Sass is back. We just took a little side trip to talk about PCA's YouTube channel. But you were on a press trip. Now, I don't even know what was the purpose of your press trip. You tell me these things and kind of passing by, and you ended up in kind of a cool situation. You want to tell us about that?
Right. It was at Willow Springs, and PCNA had brought a selection of cars from the museum in Stuttgart over.
What?
I know. Look, I had, it smacked of one of those, it's near the end of the fourth quarter, and we've got a bunch of marketing budget left. And if we don't use it, we might not get the same budget next year. So it was kind of a use it or lose it sort of thing. It was 50 years of Weissach was the name of the program.
Okay.
And they brought, there was an 89 930 cab, only year the 5-speed.
They brought a cab to the track?
Yeah. Well, it's what they had in the museum, and it was.
I bring a cab to the track because that's what I have.
Right.
I think they can bring other cars to a track.
Well, they did bring other cars. In fact, they brought a 996 GT2.
Oh.
All right. They brought a widebody 964 Carrera 4. So that was fun, and a brand new Turbo S, and a 2009 997.2 base Carrera PDK. They wanted something that was representative of an early PDK car. So that was the assortment of cars that they brought to the streets at Willow Springs. It was very informal. It was a lot of fun. It was just basically, here are the cars. Choose one and go out and enjoy on the streets at Willow Springs.
I would guess the whole idea is Weissach has just taken engineering to such a high level that when you climbed into any of those cars, as engaging and analog as they were, when you climbed into that 992, you were Superman.
Right. Exactly. When you climbed into the 992 Turbo S, it's a car that you and I called the everyday supercar.
Yeah.
And it is. It was fantastic. I mean, you could, it's the kind of car that you could drive with one hand, hold a conversation, with somebody in the right seat and, drive at like 7/10.
So
I think they should have a 930 at every press event, wherever there's some kind of Porsche that has a turbo in it. So when any journalist thinks of writing that the car has turbo lag, they
You
put
don't
them in
know.
this 930
Honestly,
and
I
say,
mean,
this is turbo
This
lag.
is the gold standard of turbo lag. I mean,
Yeah.
the streets has, kind of that fairly short sort of uphill straight, and there's one final hairpin, I guess, and then you're on the straight, and you mash the throttle, and it's in the sweet spot of boost by the time you're basically in the braking zone for this straight. So, it's not a whole lot of fun on a track like that, to be honest.
it's fun on the streets, though.
It's fun on the streets, but honestly, I spent a lot of time in sort of that second generation of 930 when they started bringing it back to the U.S. I think 86, 87, 88, and 89. My dad had an 88. And I spent a lot of time in the car, and it, back then, it was just a ferociously fast car. And now, it's not even as quick as this 997.2 base Carrera. It didn't feel as quick anyway as this 997.2 base Carrera PDK. So, time has definitely marched on. It's on 16-inch, wheels and tires. I don't know what the fronts are, but they're probably like, 225, 50, 16s or something like
Exactly.
that. So, everybody thinks of that car, as a widowmaker, snap oversteer kind of car. It's a pretty good understeer too.
I was about to say,
grip.
yeah.
It loses grip in front.
Yeah.
So 89 was the only year they made a 5-speed.
Yes, and I think that's why they brought this car. And, it was I guess a version of the Getrag G50 5-speed. And it was nice. The manual steering felt heavier than I remembered it, and I thought the steering wheel was like 300 and like 400 millimeters or something. It was actually the standard 370 millimeter wheel, but it just felt
Like a bus steering wheel.
yeah, it just felt unwieldy in comparison to the other cars. Honestly, the sweet spot for me, the 996 GT2 was fantastic. I owned a 996 twin turbo for a while. It's a vastly different car from that. I really enjoyed that, but the sweet spot, honestly, for just a really enjoyable car to drive around the streets was honestly the 964. I loved it.
The C4.
Yeah.
And there weren't many of those made, right? A C4 wide body.
That was interesting because everyone thinks it's like the turbo look,
Yeah.
like you have,
Right.
But it's not. It doesn't have any of the turbo underpinnings.
Oh, it doesn't.
It's the wide body.
But that's it.
That's it. It's,
Oh,
no
interesting.
turbo brakes, no turbo.
I remember our
suspension.
Zone 2 rep had one, and he used to DE it when we were DEing
and
our...
it's heavier than the C2 because it's all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And wider with the bigger.
So what was it like driving the GT2? I mean, that's not many people get the opportunity of driving one of those.
It wasn't. I mean, obviously, in deference to the fact that these are museum cars. We weren't pushing the cars all that hard, but it was much more benign than I thought it would be. It was everything that honestly I wanted and hoped my 996 twin turbo would be.
Mm-hmm.
That car felt heavy. It felt more like a grand touring car than an edgy sports car. And this car felt obviously more nimble. It felt lighter. It was quicker. It was louder. I mean, it was just everything that you want a turbocharged 911 to be. I love the car. Of all the cars there, that if I could have just headed for the gates, then made off with, it would have been that car. It was speed yellow. I mean, it was just fantastic to look at and just absolutely great to drive.
Very cool. So speaking of 996s, I'll make the transition over to talk about upcoming events. And one of the upcoming events that you should plan for is Werks Reunion Amelia Island, and this year's theme is
the 996.
Look at that! I'm getting pretty good at this, right? It is indeed. And so that is the beginning of March. Registration opens up today, December 15th. So make sure you register. You don't want to miss out on that. We've got some surprises. We've got a worldwide premiere that will happen at Amelia. But
I want a fried egg T-shirt.
I know, right?
Oh, yeah, seriously, come on.
We should make some sort of theme T-shirt. That would be kind of
absolutely.
Cool. But before Werks Amelia, we have to talk about Daytona. Making sure people come up to the corral for that. And we've got Tech Tactics East out of Easton, Pennsylvania. So go to pca.org and check out our calendar there. And hopefully we'll see you in 2022 at multiple events.
Yeah. But should we back up and talk about the 996 for a second?
I always love to talk about the 996.
I figured that wouldn't be that hard. But, I mean, there's a reason we should talk about why it's such a significant car. And you're a current owner. I'm a multiple X996 owner.
Seller's remorse.
Yeah. That guy in Austin who keeps texting me photos of my old red car with the aero kit. It's just killing me. I think he knows he's killing me too.
Of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, the 996, I bought mine right when I started with PCA full time. We were driving a BMW 3 Series Touring, and I convinced my wife that, I probably should roll up to PCA in a proper, Porsche. And, at the time, the 87 was not going to be a good daily driver. So for the $30,000, this was 2005, around $30,000, you could get a 996 with warranty, or you could get a 993 with high miles and out of warranty. And I guess if you're looking at from an investment perspective, I probably should have gotten a 993. But for usage, the 996 has been fantastic. I put 30,000 miles on that thing the first year I had it. Since then, I bought it with 50,000 miles, had it under warranty, put 30,000 miles on it. First year, right now it's about 95 or so. Besides changing the oil and putting gas in that car, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, IMS on that too. Though.
Oh, okay, all right, fine, you got
me
there.
But
I did. So early on, when the whole
change it before you.
Yeah. So
everybody does that, but I mean, it's been a gas and oil car ever since, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, when I bought my car in 05, the whole IMS thing that was like just starting. It wasn't really a big thing yet.
Well, you kind of glossed over your self-made suspension. That when I drove it on 95, I thought it was self-driving because I would hold the steering wheel and it would change lanes by itself.
Well, that wasn't my fault necessarily. It was I changed springs without changing. I changed springs, but I didn't change struts, and they didn't match, and it rode terribly. But I did correct that by getting proper springs and proper shocks, and now it's an autocross monster. As
and a factory aero kit car too, right?
Well, it didn't come with.
It has the factory aero kit.
It has the factory aero kit, but it's a 99, so it was installed after the fact. But it's beautiful, and we love it.
Yes, we do.
But what's funny is, remember when the 996 came out? It was the end of the world because Porsche was going to water-cooled 911s, and why live anymore?
Right.
Because it stopped. They lost sight. They were doomed because it was at the end of Porsche.
And it's not like that's ever happened in the Porsche world. Honestly, when we did the all-electric issue of Panorama, and we got a lot of negative emails over that, just not accepting the Taycan or anything else. I went back to the archives, and I went back and I looked at panoramas from 1964, and there are literally letters in them saying this 6-cylinder atrocity, this 901 thing or 911, whatever they're calling it, this is never going to be a true Porsche. So it's we
enthusiasts can be so predictable.
Yes.
But now you go to a PCA event, and it's rare to see an air-cooled car.
Oh, absolutely.
The 996 is considered vintage.
Yeah.
So
I spoke to
some of the younger journalists at the media event. They were like, I grew up with the 996 poster on my wall. And I'm thinking, they made 996 posters?
That happened to me Saturday afternoon. There was a toy drive. A local shop here did a toy drive. And the cars there are typically like later model exotics with big wheels, big tunes on them. And I rolled up in my little 996, and you could see everyone's head kind of turn, and you would think that I drove up in some sort of classic. And as I got out, like the crowd just gathered around it. And to my surprise, they knew it was a 996. Like, they were referring to it as, oh, check out that 996. Like, one day, I'm like, dude, you have like a S5 with like $100,000, worth of mods or something like that. And you're looking at my lowly 996. He's
It's
like, yeah,
perilously close to being, and this is going to be scary, perilously close to being a quarter of a century old at this point. I mean, the first ones were built, in like February, March of 1998?
Mine's an April 98 car.
April 98 car. Okay. So, it's going to be 24 years old in a couple of months. So it is. I mean, to a large, cross-section of the population, it is a vintage car. And there are things about it that feel very analog and very vintage.
And compared to, there was Skylines and, R8s, and it was amazing to see how little the 996 was compared to these other cars. There was this young lady that drove a Tesla Plaid that was all wrapped up, and she had just gotten back from the track. Guess what quarter mile time she ran in a Plaid? That's just an average citizen with her
under
Plaid.
10 seconds.
9.2, 9.5.
She did like a 10.2. 10.2.
Wow. And she was able to stop before the end of the drag strip
in a bone stock car. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's,
yeah.
So, it'll be exciting to see the. Last year with all those 928s, that was pretty cool.
So, so what we're doing new for Amelia Island is you can actually register to park your 996 over on sort of the judged fairways without being judged. It's going to be a display only. So we're going to have let's call it a 996 specific corral.
It's called the Manny class, because I think I set the precedent.
Oh gosh, here he goes, trying to take credit for everything.
Entering your car in a car show, but not being judged. You get to park in the best spot possible on the field.
Exactly.
You get to you're not crammed into the corral. Only thing is you got to be there all day. You can't.
Correct.
Leave
you have to commit to
hours.
Staying all day, and so that way we'll have a nice collection of cars.
I've been doing that since parade.
Because you've always said that's the. You get the best parking spot, right?
Yeah, just right on there. Do not judge, and everyone is staring at you because you're not sitting there cleaning your car and Q-tipping it. You're walking around enjoying the scenery. But I'm glad we're doing that this year, and it'll be fun to see the 996s come out.
Yeah, we're also going to visit the property. We are considering changing up where we're going to be displaying the judge cars. They have some other pretty nice fairways. We got to figure out sort of the egress and such about it, and if we're gonna change it up, make it fresh again.
If you've never been to Amelia Island, I wouldn't call it the week yet. But certainly it's a nice Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday type event. It's the tip of Florida, so it's not going to be super hot in March, but it's certainly going to be a lot better than it is, at least in the mid-Atlantic Northeast. And it's nowhere near as crowded as Monterey is during Car Week. And it's Werks Reunion is free again. The Amelia Island Cars and Coffee is free. It's still free, isn't it, Damon?
I believe so. I think it's just parking getting there.
You have to
pre-register your car. Right. They sell out pretty quickly. You got to register early for that. But just to go over and watch, it's no cost. Plus, you can walk on the outside of Amelia and look at all the auction cars. And there's plenty to do. And
it's a great weekend. There is a significant change for Amelia Island this year. Anybody recall what that change is?
I do not.
Who owns
Besides
Amelia?
ownership?
Oh, yeah. Change in ownership of Amelia
yes.
Island, right? So it's owned by
Haggerty.
Talking about Haggerty, yeah.
Yes, they bought yet another event. So I had the pleasure of sitting with McKeel at the Peterson Gala, and I just casually asked him about what things will change, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be very respectful to most of the traditions. But if I know Haggerty and what they do, and they're gonna inject some energy into that event, I would guess. But the question is, what will they change? Because change is tough for enthusiasts in general, not just PCA or Porsche enthusiasts. But we're quite predictable, and we're very We like the things the way they've been.
And let's face it, it was a pretty dialed-in event. I mean, Bill Warner's very, very deep connections in the motorsports world were kind of the key differentiator for Amelia Island.
Yeah.
Just being able to go there and say, oh, wow, there's Vic Elford, there's Derek Bell. It was that kind of an event, and I imagine it will continue to be. But, yeah.
I like it a lot better than Pebble Beach.
It's more accessible.
Well, it has more of the cars that I like. Pebble Beach has some great pre-war cars. They don't do anything for me.
No.
I appreciate them, but it's not something I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see.
When 90% of the cars on the field, I didn't even know existed, or brands.
Yeah, it's almost like it's so hip, so rare that you really can't appreciate it until maybe afterwards you read about it. And you're like, oh, I should have looked at that closer. But with Amelia Island, they do a good split of those pre-war war cars. But then the cars like we grew up with, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80 cars.
I'm the same way. I mean, I don't relate that well to pre-war cars. There were no posters of Voisins or Horks or stuff like that. It's just
right over my head.
Right over my head. And it's like, to me,
that could be some kind of whiskey you just
right.
said.
Yeah, but those are like the cars that win at Pebble Beach. I'm still waiting for a post-war car to win Best in Show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be it's going to be a lot of fun. But for Daytona also, for people who are new to the scene, we have like probably the best what I call beachfront property at the 24 Hours of Daytona. I think we're the only car club that has it against the fencing, where you get to see the action. There's other car clubs, but they're like in the middle, and you really don't see the action. We've had this spot for, my God, over 30 years probably. And it parks close to 200 Porsches.
Yeah.
I would imagine the tickets are probably already sold out. They sell out within minutes to be able to park your car. And they're militant that it's only Porsches can park inside there.
Absolutely.
They don't care if you own a fleet of Porsches. If you don't bring a Porsche and you don't have the ticket, you can go inside. But even if you fly down or just drive down in Damon's Toyota, you can... You can get a parking spot in the infield or just right outside. And PCA has a great hospitality tent.
Open to any PCA member and or Porsche owner.
They usually bring over teams that are supported by the factory or racing Porsches, and they give some talks, and they have door prizes and usually some snacks. And you can hang out with your fellow Porsche Club people to watch the race. So it's a... great experience if you've never gone to the 24 Hours of Daytona, but don't think that it's going to be super warm during that race.
It's a hit or miss.
Yeah.
It's a hit or miss.
At nighttime, bring warm clothes.
Yeah.
But go back at night because it is a 24-hour race, and watching
going into the pits.
Yeah, these teams working on the cars, you can get right up.
Yeah.
To the garage, and you're watching them scrambling, trying to get this car back together to race. It's they have cars that have gotten a lot more reliable, so it isn't like in the 80s when I used to go, where you'd find half the field in the garage at midnight working on the cars. But still, it's the access you have compared to a NASCAR Formula One race is mind blowing.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember my first, going to Daytona and just realizing how close you could get to everything. That's quite phenomenal.
Yeah, it's almost here.
So a not so smooth transition, but we're talking about phenomenal things. I want to congratulate Rob on the December issue of Panorama. Phenomenal.
Oh, the all women's issue that was thanks.
You like that?
I mean that's something that we've had in the works for a while. And I think we talked about this before. We wanted to not do something that felt like we were, overtly doing something. We're pandering. We just noticed in issues past that we've developed a really loyal base of female freelancers, photographers, and writers, and our thinking was, let's just do an entire issue utilizing their talents, and that's what we did. We didn't brand it a women's issue or anything else, but all the feature stories were about women, written by women, and photographed by women, and it was a lot of fun. The Rebel Rally piece, the photography was dramatic and fantastic. Yeah. And it's a great story about these two women who basically were gotten together through the Rebel Rally's version of Match.com. They didn't know each other previously, and they campaigned a Cayenne Turbo S.
Yeah, what's great really is that Rob allowed us to published on PCA.org a web version of the
in
Rebel
front of
Rally.
the login wall.
In front of the login wall. It's called Yes We Cayenne. And if you don't get Panorama, or if you do and want to share something like that with your friends, maybe convince them to buy a Porsche, join the club, or test drive, to join in on some of this fun, share the Rebel Rally article, Yes We Cayenne, with them to give them a taste of what Panorama and PCA is all about.
Yep. Yeah, but it's a really fun issue. There's a story about a PCA member who's, I think, an American Airlines flight attendant who tracked down her mom's 356B coupe.
Pam.
Yeah,
from Chicago.
She was a parade winner in the concourse, I believe, too.
Yeah, so we got Lynn Woodward to write the story. It's the first time she's written for Panorama, but she's been in automotive journalism for years, just generally attached to a publication that didn't permit her to freelance. So she wrote the story. It was a fantastic piece, and it was just really an issue that we're all proud of. Amy Skoogstrom, our executive editor, wrote the editor's column this time around. And so I didn't have to do that for once.
Now, the one article or spread in there that was near and dear to my heart was Margie Smith Haas. And Manny, you probably know the most history about Margie, and you want to give folks a preview of what that piece is about.
Yeah, she's an amazing woman who said a lot of firsts. I got to know her because I love to collect the Porsche Pillows, and that's what, to me, she was famous for. TFA, Toys for Adults, not what you think it is. It's, I don't know what happens when you Google that now, but it was these pillows that
Porsche Pillows
were very accurate for a pillow to look like a Porsche. And the story behind it was even more incredible. She was a member of San Diego region, and she had made a few of these pillows, I think, for Parade. And Dr. Porsche, the Ferry Porsche, and his wife saw them and approached her and said, "Can you make us some for our grandchildren?" And she agreed to, and the family saw it, and then the family started making more requests for even more. So she started a business of making these TFA, and Ferry Porsche actually handwrote her a note giving her permission to use the Porsche name and images, because she said later on she got a somewhat nasty letter from the attorney saying, you need to cease and desist because you don't have permission. And she whipped out this handwritten note that said, "Will this do?"
Oh, man, how awesome would that be to hand a lawyer? How about this letter?
So when I met her, I didn't know that, quite honestly, I didn't know she was alive. I just I figured this was an old company, and I was going to an event when I was on the board, and I see the name Margie Smith Haas ahead of mine as registered, and I thought, wow, that's the same name of the person who does the pillows.
Yeah.
And my friend goes, "Oh yeah, she's here. It's a really attractive older blonde lady." And so I had to go stalk her, find out. So I introduced myself and said who I was, and we became fast friends because she saw how enthusiastic I was about her toy pillows. And lo and behold, I think I told you about them, got you interested.
Absolutely, because I remember seeing those. Damon wasn't around back then, but they used to have this catalog that came to our house, Beverly Hills Motoring Accessories.
Yeah.
And the pillows were in there.
Yeah.
And she grew her business from, creating Porsche ones. She did Mercedes, BMW, Nissans, race cars, and it became pretty lucrative, I think. And so Manny kind of, fueled the flame there for pillows, and I started collecting a few of them. But more recently, we stay in touch with her. She actually provides new original stock,
got some NOS ones.
Yeah,
in the
so
PCA
she has some still in her storage facility that she will pull out a couple dozen just for PCA and send it to our office. So for those of you that don't have one, you can check out PCA.org or call our office. We still have new original stock ones
We should
for
get her
sale.
to crank that up again and design like a pillow vehicle configurator.
Well, here's the thing: what she's up
That'd
to
be
now,
so cool.
what she's up to now, makes me, just makes me happy to think. She's been taking care of her husband for quite some time, and right now she's able to spend more time on herself. And she went out. She had a 914. She had a turbo. She had all these cars that were sort of just being stored, and she sold them. And good for her.
I think she got her start actually autocrossing a 914.6.
I believe that's
led
correct.
to her being the first woman to win a major road racing championship.
And and here's how it comes full circle. So she just bought a 986 Boxster, And guess what she decided to do with it like the week after she got it?
Autocross it?
She went to go autocross it.
That's so cool.
And so, Kathy Thorpe, who was our autocross chair, now Kathy's an amazing driver. And I think we've talked about Kathy in our autocross podcast. Like she'll just hop in a GT4 and just, even if it's not her car, she smoked the two owners in the parade class that had GT4s. But anyway, she hops in the car with Kathy and makes Kathy faster. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, we didn't notice. At least I didn't know that she had this background with racing, and she raced at Le Mans, and she had a whole career.
Yeah.
I just knew her as the Pillow Lady, and so that made it even more an incredible story. How really special she is. That and I'm glad she's a PCA member. And,
she is. She's such a sweetheart
and so fun to talk to.
Yeah, she comes out to Werks Reunion. She'll be at parades, and again, like I said, she's just so sweet and able to. When she heard how much we love the pillows, she's like, I'll pull some out and I'll make some for you. She's still making pillows for us.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, Laura Burstein did a wonderful job writing the story. She really captured Margie really well, and we're proud to have her in that issue.
So what's up for January?
January is the design issue, the annual design issue.
Design issue 2.0?
Yes, design issue 2.0. Don't want to give too much away about it. Last time around, it was kind of cars and architecture. This time around, there are a lot of other cool pieces of industrial design, whether it's airplanes, trains, boats, that sort of thing that mesh well with the Porsches that we've chosen for the issue. So continued a lot of fun with it. The great Michael Allen Ross, the photographer, shot all the stories for this one as well. So excited to have that mail in the next couple of weeks.
So Damon, what's coming up for videos?
So we have, when we were in California after the LA Auto Show, we shot a new Tech Art 911 Turbo S based car, which will be coming up in the next month or so. Tomorrow or tonight, actually, we're going to be setting up a couple sim racing rigs at the office.
Oh, yes.
And cool. Shooting a video on that. And just to give you an idea, one rig is, I think, worth $17,000, and the other rig
and that's the mid-range.
That's the mid-range.
Yep.
The top range, the other rig we're setting up is worth or priced at $79,000. So we're actually going to be setting these up and doing a video comparison.
Let's repeat that price. How much was that?
$79,000. So I could have bought 3 or 4 of my Caymans for that thing.
That's what I thought. I said, if you've lost your license for a DWI, you should get the simulator. It's about the same money.
Well, here's the thing. It's like I'm kind of excited for this because I'm looking at this from the perspective. We get press cars on occasion, and I'm treating this as the sim racing company is dropping off, so to speak, 2 amazing sim racing rigs. All we know is the $1,500, $2,000 sim racing rigs that we have at home. That's fun. I can't imagine how
long is it going to stay at the office?
I think just for a day. For a day. Yeah.
I was going to say, because productivity is going to go right down the drain.
Yeah.
While it's here.
Yeah, at least for the people who aren't doing the video, but I'll be working for that. Uh-huh. So we have a Carrera Rs 2.7 video that will be coming out with soon, as well as a video on the 964 and the RS counterparts of the 964. So the 964 Carrera RS, the European model, the RS America, which is the American model, the US model that came out here, and also the Carrera RS Club Sport, which is also European, but is basically a stripped out race car that is road legal. And if you live in a state like Maryland, you can import them now and drive them on the street. Because it's past the 25-year rule. So we have a lot of cool 964 videos coming up, and also a dry ice blasting video. I've talked about a deep sump video where I installed a 2-quart deep sump on my Cayman in past podcasts. A little bit behind, but that's also coming up as well. So we have
he's a little behind because he's been working on his Camry.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So I got that running. It's a 98 Camry. So I guess we'll transition into winter projects a little bit. And basically, last winter, a brother-in-law was going to get rid of his 263,000-mile 98 Camry. The kicker is that it has a V6, and it also has a manual transmission.
And it also, if you can imagine, pink, from Charlie Brown, the kid that always had like a dust cloud.
Oh, Pigpen.
Pigpen, right?
This could be a.
This would be a.
It's a fill-in for a abandoned car in Detroit.
It's basically
it
Pigpen
does
is
not
a
gonna be
car.
broken into.
The only thing it does not have the classic basketball-sized Camry dent in the back bumper.
It does
It's
not.
got like a totally pristine
Is it
rear
missing any
bumper.
clear coat?
I don't think it is, but it might be. It's hard to tell under all the brine from Chicago, which
He
is where
hasn't
the car
washed
came.
it since he's had it.
No, why
well,
wash
then
it?
make
It's
it
a
different.
patina.
That's why you own
It's
the
not going to
car.
improve it.
The rust is what's keeping it together.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, it's rusty. When I thought it just had to have the power steering rack replaced, and also the alternator was seized. Turned out I had to replace the brake calipers, the discs, the parking brake cables. I went as far as valve cover
But other
gaskets,
than that,
water
it's all
pump.
original.
Oh man, but it runs great now.
Okay, no, all right.
All right, I
Runs
don't want to
great.
ask
There's no
this
muffler,
question,
so it
but
sounds great.
Yeah.
What are you into the Camry for at this point?
Oh man, I shipped it here for about $800-900, thinking that I would put maybe
Wait,
500
was
to
the car-
1,000.
Was it free? Or did
It was
you-
a free car,
It was a
so I
free
shipped
car.
it here. My
Okay,
brother-in-law
all right.
they were going to salvage
right.
it, so I figured V6 manual, it might be worth it. So I thought I'd be, maybe $1,500, $2,000 into it, with a power steering rack and an alternator. But I'm probably closer to like 4,000 into it now, which
Then
is
there's Vu's free car.
Yeah. So let's wrap it up. We're at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
And, again, congratulations to all here. And thank you to the Executive Council for allowing us to do the pilot for the podcast through April. If you're enjoying the show, please let us know. If you have any comments, please let us know as well, good or bad. Thank you for listening. If you're not a current PCA member and you own a Porsche, what are you waiting for? Just go to PCA.org and join. And if you can't do that, you can always call our office. Just be sure to have your VIN handy. And for those of you that don't currently own a Porsche, we've got a program for you too. It's called Test Drive. So just, again, go to www.pca.org and we'd love to have you on board. Fellas, anything else?
If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and watch many of our other videos.
And this will be the last podcast before the holidays. So happy holidays to all. Travel safe and be healthy.